Hello and welcome to a CBK Gaming video. Join us as we discuss and review two small box expansions for The Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. The first is last year's Villains of Eriador and
the newly released Dwellers in Darkness.
So, what are these two expansions? How do they fit with the core set and the larger box expansion, the Shadowed Paths? Both box sets provide three new miniatures that represent either villains from previous campaigns or new villains which are associated with the new quest or adventures that have been released on the app. So it is important to note, if you purchase these box sets, they do link to purchased quests on the app. So you will be spending £5 or £6 on the new adventure on the app, plus the £10 to £20 that you'd be looking to spend on these small box expansions. They come with a number of trinkets, they come with a number of titles, all which get populated into the previous stories and quests. So they are used and you put them in with the rest of your cards. The figures represent those villains, and it's nice to see those on the table, especially Golgotha, the first villain from the first core game. And when you first play that and you didn't have those figures, putting just a normal, it didn't feel right. So having a specific model for him now feels really good. So the extra stories, the hunt for the Ember crown for the Villains of Eriador and the haunting of Dale with the Dwellers in the Darkness, we're also going to be looking at those. The hunt for the Ember crown first. This is a bit of a different story to the core sets, and when we first played it we really enjoyed the more investigative side. There were some interesting adventures where you had to work things out, and I really like those. I like them in Mansions of Madness, I like them in Hunt for the Ember Crown, but it wasn't quite there. Good adventure, worth buying the little expansion box for as well, but it could have gone further. And I'm really pleased to say they do in both the Shadowed Paths, which we've already reviewed, and you'll see a link up here somewhere. In the Haunting of Dale, they've taken those ideas further, and I really enjoy it. It's more investigative, it's more, there's paths and branching paths. Now there were in the, as I say, there were in the Hunt for the Ember Crown, and certainly in the Shadowed Paths, and I'm really hoping we're going to see more of that. It gives more longevity to the gameplay. It means that you come back to it and you can choose a different path and see how things change. That works really, really well. The Ember Crown had a good overall story, good feeling. I like the way they show the animosity between elves and dwarves. That worked really well. We've played it with 5 players, we've played it with 4, and we've played it with 2. At all times it was very well balanced, didn't feel out of balance. It's, as I say, you're looking in the UK, you're probably going to be looking to spend probably about 20 to £30 on the single box set and the download in the app. So potentially looking at about £50, £60 for both. Do I think it's worth it for the Villains of Eriador? Yes, I do. I wouldn't buy it first. I would, as long as you have the Shadowed Paths, I would buy the Dwellers in the Darkness. The latest, as I say, Haunting of the Dale. That story is very well done. They've learnt a lot from the previous stories. They've learnt from, I think, some of the ways they've run the Mansion of Madness adventures, and it just feels a cleaner production. They're in stride. They know what they're doing and they know what they're going to deliver. After that, I would probably look to purchase the Villains of Eriador. You add those extra cards, they'll get used. The monsters will only be added if you're going to get the Hunt for the Ember Crown or play the initial campaign. But it is good with all these games, Mansion of Madness and Journeys in Middle-earth, and in fact the same with Arkham Horror and Eldritch Horror. When you buy the newer expansions, they retrospectively add all of that to the previous content. So certainly for the app-driven games, that makes a big difference. It means that you can go back and you can play those games and they get a little bit more longevity. With games like Eldritch Horror, they are still there. You still put them in, but it's not the app. The app doesn't change because there's no app for it. So overall, what do you think about these expansions? I've given my verdict, my opinion.
Fantasy Flight have done really well, and they've kept the same tone going. It's like putting on a nice fitted pair of gloves. You're back to the game. It's the same as the base game. It's just continuing with a new story. The quality of the figures are superb as always, as you'd expect from a Fantasy Flight game. And I've really enjoyed sort of the subtle changes that have come in, such as the new one, the Dwellers in Darkness, becoming more investigative, and the branches, as you said, that influence what you do in the rest of the journey. And there are some that if you don't choose to do something early on, you don't know what consequences you're going to find later on in the path you have taken. And it just keeps that air of mystery, of the what ifs going right the way through the story. And I love that. That to me is what a really good campaign is about. It's the whole, did I make the right decision on that turn, that stays with you right the way through, and you're wondering if now that I've found this situation that I'm in, would it have been different if I'd chosen a different path? And I love the interest, because it makes you want to come back and say, can I find that option again and see where the other path goes, or
what's different?
Is a choice that I made earlier on going to influence that and I'm never going to find it again? It keeps the repeatability going again and again.
I think that's, not only have they made a good game with good mechanics, good stories, they've really kept it in the realm of Lord of the Rings. It's Tolkien's vision. To me, this seems to fit very nicely with that vision. It is darker. I think it's got that dark edge. It's not quite grim dark in Oathsworn or Games Workshop Warhammer Fantasy. It's still got the very black and white, good, evil. There's very little grey in Lord of the Rings. Unlike Warhammer, etc., where it is very grey rather than very obvious.
They've done well in bringing Middle-earth to life.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, there you have it. We at CBK Gaming highly recommend that if you enjoy Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth, not only do you need Shadowed Paths, as you've seen in our previous review, these are two much needed expansions. We would suggest Dwellers in the Darkness first, followed by the Villains of Eriador. Just remember, you do need to purchase the extra expansion quests, adventures on the app.
And you do need Shadow Path's big box expansion to then get Dwellers in Darkness.
Yes. I think there was Shadowed Paths had some issues in the UK, so it's quite difficult to get. I know it took Wayland Games to get a copy to us. It took us about 3 months. Thankfully, we'd also ordered from Ready to Play, and they provided it within a week. So you may have some difficulty getting hold of the Little Box expansion. I've seen it sold out in most places, but I'm sure there'll be a second lot come through. So hopefully, if it's something you want, you'll be able to get it. So thank you for watching. If you enjoy what we do, please consider liking and subscribing. It means a lot to us, and having seen people recently subscribing from our Darklight review, welcome. We hope you enjoy your stay, and we'll be looking at more dungeon crawling style games and cooperative games. They're some of our favourite games to play. You will also find there's another video coming out in the next couple of weeks for reviewing an old game from my childhood, and that is Acquire. And we're also looking, or I will be reviewing a war game, which we'll be doing once a month, and hopefully Chris will be joining me on that. And we'll be looking at some of the old games, so I'm very eager to look at Raid on St. Nazar. But on this occasion I will be reviewing Interceptor Ace, and we'll be looking after that probably Night Fighter Ace. There's some quite interesting games, Compass by Compass Games. I'm really looking forward to looking at those and bringing that content. We also hope to have some unboxing videos, so we've got a number of games coming through, expansions coming through. We have the next Tainted Grail expansion. We have the new Folklore expansion, though there are some issues with that, and we really hope Greenbrier Games get that sorted. I really feel sorry for them at the moment. We also have the expansion for Spirit Island, Jagged Island I think it's called. We are also looking forward to a number of other games coming along, which we'll be able to share with you. So thank you very much for watching.